Hey everyone, it's me back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the MSI GTX 1080 Ti Gaming X Trio. Okay, so it's an absolute mammoth of a card. It's over 2 slots, as we can see down this end. You can see that it's 2.5 slot basically, but any of you out there with, you know, short of space, you might find a little bit of room. The other thing to look at as well is this is your riser card. I call these your Pci Express Brackets at the back. But anyway, you can see that there. You can see that there's a fair bit of extra width as well. But what we can see down the side is there's a big brace down here which runs throughout the card as well. You do get a big back plate as well. And then also on this side you can see you've got a plate over here for the VRMs, and that pretty much does come around the entirety of the card. And then you can see the black brace that I told you about before, and that's because that is in contact with all of the memory as well. So if I just really crudely zoom you in so that you can see underneath and what's going on, you can see that there's an awful lot of engineering gone into this cooling, and we will talk about the cooling in a bit as well. The other thing is you can see here you've got some little red bits. These do end up being lights, sadly, which I found to be a bit of a letdown. But you can see that there's a lot of time and effort gone into the cooler on this, and this is a lighting section up here as well. The other thing that you do get in the box though, which I will show you fitted and explain to you about it, is you do get a big GPU support brace, and it does have 2 rubber tabs up here, and you can also see that it sticks out quite far, and that's to obviously go out to the width of the card. Now I have had a few issues with this. I don't know whether you can see, it's like got a big blood blister at the end of my finger and stuff. I'll show you this, but I wasn't particularly enthused about it. But anyway, so stay tuned for that. I'll explain why it kind of doesn't really matter either. But anyway, so let's move on. This is just a quick glance at the card so that you can see it fitted, but without the brace. Sometimes with the cards, when they are fitted and they're quite heavy, sometimes you can tweak the screws at the back and get it fitted a little better. But the best I can do, you can still see there is a little bit of droop on there. Okay, so we've got the brace fitted, but what I've done is I've left there's a slot in the middle that I've left in, because that was where it kind of best touched the card. But the brace can be moved up and down, so I'm now going to take this missing slot out and see if I can adjust it and make any changes, because if I'm honest, it's not really done a great deal to stop any of the droop. I'm not sure whether the angle with the camera is helping, but yeah, so I'm going to tweak again. Now this is just so that you can see the process that you might have had to go through at home. Okay, so I have played around and adjusted a little bit more, and I have to admit, it just doesn't seem to, I don't know, I've messed around and played with this a lot, and it just always does seem to end up going back to pretty much how it was before. And like, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I think I'm going to break something when I'm twisting and bending it, but I'm not. Yeah, the brace, I have to admit, it sounds and looks like a great idea, but in reality you can see at the top of the camera it's not really doing anything. And what you can do is you can adjust the screws at the back and you can move it around and twist it up, but it just, you can see this isn't even in contact at this end, so you end up constantly trying to adjust it. Maybe with a little bit more time and faffing around I might be able to get it to go. But the other thing is when you do the screws up this end, it moves it for you the whole time as well. So I mean, you can see how much I'm struggling and twisting to try and get this it's just not, yeah. Yeah, not overly impressed, if I'm honest. I know the light's probably not helping, but yeah, it's a lot of faffing around. I think what you have to do is, because you can tilt it that way on the brackets at the back, and you can see that I'm getting a bit of droop, but I can't get it to stay holding it up. What I've been doing off camera has been laying it down and trying to adjust it. It may even just end up being a two-person job, but yeah, if it was me and I'm fitting this and I'm building this, I probably just wouldn't use it. So when it comes to lighting, first and foremost, it has got a bar on the top that is very similar to the Lightning. But it does have, and I'm just going to pick the camera up, it does have an extra section there where it all moves through, and it is all kind of cool. Now, in my uber professional way, just not messing about, you can see that there are lights here. I've already spoken about it, and they're red. Now, you can turn them off in the software, and you can set these lights in the software, but to be honest with you, for the love of God, MSI, these little red bits, why? Just why? I mean, they could have just been gloss black for a little bit of a different texture. Or you could have put RGBs there as well or something. Most of the competition have RGBs down that side. I know there are going to be people straight away saying, well, I don't like RGBs, and that's fine. You can turn them off for you. But there are a lot of people out there that do like to be able to set their colours. And having rainbow up here, or being able to set it to whatever colour you want, maybe you want it blue, I'm not going to then want red underneath. Now, I like red. I like white and red stuff. That's why the system is white and red. So even though I like red, I'm, with my reviewer head on, mixing those two things makes no sense. And it does just go to show that they made great strides when they made the changes to the Lightning, and they're kind of reverting back to their normal. I mean, this does obviously look a lot better. There's not that much red on this. I just don't think it needed to be there at all. Okay, so on to a bit of performance. Now, I bring the GPU Z up. This is basically you can see the default clocks and then the boost clocks. You know what I mean? So you can see either side. Now, this was with it in overclock mode before GPU boost kicked in. So, and I did test the card in the overclock mode. And when I bring up the clock speeds that I've put in the graph was the maximum that I managed to squeeze out of it in the end. But I didn't do manual overclock testing. We just ran it through with the normal overclock mode as you would set it. It puts it at it puts it up. I think, what was it? It went from 1658 to 1733 going into overclock mode. But this was just to show you what you could get out of it. I basically got 75 megahertz as an offset, as an extra. So we did end up getting up close to the hallowed 2000 megahertz as an average. And the average bit is absolutely key. So it did do fairly well. That was really just by playing around with the power offset and then working our way up with the boost. Now, the reason why it doesn't sound like it overclocks that much is, let's face it, GPU Boost 3 was basically putting over 200 megahertz on it itself, and it does that without you even having to worry about it. And if I'm perfectly honest with you about it as well, unless you're a tweaker, I wouldn't worry about it too much anyway. You can add a little bit, like 10% onto the power percentage, and then see just kind of how much it pushes the clocks up for you, but you don't need to overthink it. And if you're really worried, 10% on the power boosted, normally 50 megahertz is safe for most cards as an offset, but you do just need to remember as well, that does mean you're going to have another bit of software running, because every time you start Windows, it has to go in and apply all those clocks. So anyway, so with in its overclock mode, and that is the stressful thing that I've got to kind of push in the OC mode, but without the manual overclock on, just with the normal stuff, because that overclock mode doesn't like turn voltages up. It actually changes all the clocks and stuff for you as well. But 63 degrees, and I tested that as the same as I did all of the other cards. So, with Unigine, 4K, 8x AA, 30 minutes. It's also how I do the average testing for the GPU clocks as well. So that's a very, very cool and strong cooled card as well. Performance wise, it did really quite well with superposition. When it came to Ghost Recon Wildlands, it was a little bit further down the graph than I was expecting, and it came in okay with Deus Ex Mankind as well. And that was just because, I mean, if we'd have tested with the manual overclock, it would have been further up the graph. But just to let you know, I did run those 2 games through, and it still didn't really beat any of the single 1080 Ti's in their standard overclock modes without any manual settings. So even with this manually overclocked, it wasn't beating some of the other cards. So let's talk about it. At the end of the day, price $749.99, so £750. Now that's not ever going to be classed as being cheap, but when you can get £900 1080 Ti's, it's not that bad. And I think for the fact of how big and cool, and I think over-engineered, really, I don't think it was, let's put it this way, it was less than I thought. I thought it was going to be at least 800 quid. So the fact it was 750, I think they've done really well. The thing with the card though is the cooler is obviously massive, and that's why the temperatures are kept right down, and that is probably going to be the selling point. I have to admit, if it was me and I bought this card, I may change the light up here, but I'd definitely turn those red LEDs off at the bottom, and I probably might even turn this one off up at the top as well, and just have it as kind of a slightly more understated card. The bracket I found really frustrating. I could probably spend more time on it, but the best way I can put it is, you know, I had it on its side, I tried it that way, I even genuinely tried tipping the case upside down and trying to fit it in place that way, and it just feels a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. It might be a 2-person job, but it just wasn't as easy as I was expecting. I have used some of the other ones with other cards in the past, and I've been able to get them to sit in and sort themselves out really fine, but because there's quite a lot of adjustment on the back, what happens is when you screw the screw in, it kind of moves it for you, and it's very difficult to be able to keep all the planes of movement in place because it can go up and down and left and right, and you've got that bit trying to move at the back. So that's why I'm thinking it might be a 2-man job. You know, one man holds it and the other man tightens the screws up, and you might be able to get it in that way. It doesn't droop that bad though, but it's obviously something when you buy a card like this and you see that, you're instantly going to go for it to fit it, and it didn't make my life very easy, and it wasn't really part of an enriching part of the process, to the point where, like, if I was to pull it out now, it didn't even move. So I mean, it's just, yeah, it doesn't really do anything. So I don't think it droops that bad anyway, but and a lot of people are like, oh, it's not been made properly. It's just the cards are getting so heavy now because of banging the extra coolers on. And I don't think there's anywhere they could have braced it any better, short of having a bar up here so you can fix it to the top of your case. So yeah, I mean, if really with the graphics card bars, sometimes the ones that like sit on your power supply or something are the best option. But if, you know, the way it comes down to it is, if you're going to fit it, put it on your desk and forget about it. A lot of the time you don't particularly need these anyway. It's when you move them around and stuff, and that's normally why when I take a case to a show or something like that, I take the graphics card out of it and ship it separately. So maybe that's something you can keep in mind. But anyway, it performed all right. The price was better than I thought for the build quality, and it is incredibly cool. So we're not going to go giving it any kind of enthusiast or performance award, but if you're a gamer and you're looking for a 1080 Ti and you want something that's cool, it looks all right, and you can make peace with the red, it's definitely not a product that I would tell you to be not getting. There are a lot of options out there for you though, and that is something that you do need to kind of keep in mind. 1080 Ti's, they're all going to be quite expensive, and you need to decide which one is going to be right for you. But nevertheless, OC3D Gamer's Choice, because I have no reason why not to tell you to purchase it, because it still does have the immense performance of the 1080 Ti underneath, and they've done a good job of most of the parts of the rest of the cooler. Aesthetics, weirdly, even though there's a lot more black on it,
aesthetics is probably my trip over point, and with the red lights and stuff, I just wish they had done it a little bit better. But other than that, it's a fairly good, strong, well-built, very cool card. So, on that note, this has been Tiny Tom Logan.